Hi everyone and welcome to tonight's stream, and tonight we're going to be doing a little bit of colour work. So over the last couple of nights you've seen me working on the black and white dragon design, and that's got to the stage where I'm now going to start doing colour testing to see what I like the look of and what I want to go for. Last night's stream did result in some really nice ideas, and I'm going to actually go with one of those, which was a seasons idea. So, what I've done is, this is a big reveal, I've photocopied the drawing, as I said I would yesterday, and this is now what I can colour in. So my original's to the side, and now it's colour time. So the paper stroke cardstock that I've copied it onto is a Crafter's Companion paper. Sorry about the splurge, my tea went everywhere. Now I don't actually know the weight or the name of this paper card. I've had it about a year, so I can't say what weight it is. I can't say much really about it. It is a coated one, so it's got a very nice smooth surface to it, and as far as I know it is designed to go with the markers. So marker wise, after the debate last night of how I should go for it, I am going to do one in Copics, I am going to do one in pencil, but tonight I'm going to start working on this drawing in Spectrum Noir markers. So Spectrum Noir markers are by Crafter's Companion, and they are a bit different to Grashbankwinkle, your other markers. So I'm just going to turn this over because don't want to spoil the surprise, do we now? Right, so Spectrum Noir markers are these guys, and there's several types. There's a blue one, which I think is a colorista. Then there's these black ones, which are their main ones. And then you also have the... Sorry, I should have got these out earlier. Right, so you've also got the Illustrator and the Graphique. So these are the ones that I've got, and they all have the same principle of that they are an alcohol marker. The Spectrum Noir have got a chisel tip and a bullet tip. The Illustrator have got a finer tip and a brush tip, and the Graphic has got a chisel tip and a slightly longer bullet tip. So that's kind of the three differences. The Spectrum Noirs are refillable, as I believe the Illustrator and the Graphics are as well. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And so you buy the ink in quite big pots. So you know when you buy Copic ink, you buy them in these, don't you? These little doobers, and this can last forever. The Spectrum Noir refills are almost like old-fashioned glass tubby things. So with dibber things in them. Sorry, I can't really explain it. I haven't actually ordered any of those because I'm not quite at that stage where I'm going to be refilling them. So I am going to look into that in the future, but it's all going to go down to cost. So these, I'm probably going to be just using the normal Spectrum Noirs, and I may bring in the Illustrator and the Graphic. All of the inks all complement and work together, so there's no problem because they are alcohol based inks. The only thing that you have to watch out for if you do buy these pens is, unlike Copics and also Pro markers, so that's your Pro marker. Oops, I'm showing you all this upside down today, aren't I? So that's your Pro marker, and that's one type of Copic, and then that's the other type of Copic, just so we got everything in relation. So unlike the Pro marker and some of the other markers, even the Copics, the colour that you see on the nib with Copics and Pro markers, this colour, is what you will pretty much 99% get in the barrel. With the Spectrum Noirs, it's not the same. The nibs and the tips are not the colour that you're going to get out of the pen, so you need to do a colour swatch with Spectrum Noir pens before you start. That way you don't get any nasty surprises. Whereas I know a lot of us are used to just picking up a marker, seeing the colour and knowing, like Runsell, it's exactly what is on the tin. So there are those differences. The ink flow is also slightly different, so the Spectrum Noirs seems to be juicier, so you do get what feels to be a faster ink flow from these, so you just have to be very careful, and that's where the right card stock or paper stock with these markers is essential. Now, as you probably caught a glimpse earlier, I did some colour swatching in my break time today, and I also had a little bit of a play just to make sure that the nibs I could actually get into the detail, because this was a problem that I was worried about, was because of the thickness of the nibs I couldn't get into the weeny detail. As you can see, it's come up quite nicely, and these are a rough idea of the colours. So you can see the seasonal theme is going to be around autumn, which is a lovely time of the year. And these aren't going to be all of the colours, but these are the colours that I primarily want to start with. I tend to probably use about 30-40 colours in a drawing. So this is just a rough guide, and then of course we've got gel pen inks for golds, bronzes, and I think I've got a copper somewhere around here. I'm pretty much sure I've got gold, copper, silver and bronze. So apart from silver, the others will probably be used. So that gives you a rough idea of kind of the colour waves that I'm going for. Reds, I'm probably not going to have too many of the reds. I do like the GR10 and the OR3, but I don't want them to be too dominant over the whole image, so it's going to be toning back. One of the main pens that I will be using a lot of, if I can remember where I've put it, is the Colourless Blender. Now, Colourless Blender is a lifesaver. It's not just there to bleach out the colour, but it can add texture by doing spots and different marks with it. You can add in a really nice amount of texture into your image. So, without any more waffling, the green sheet is just going to be there to take up the excess ink, because with this Crafter's Companion card, as you can see, I have got bleed through there, and it's pulled in quite a lot of areas. So it's going to be interesting to see on this one how much bleed through we get. And this isn't a case that I'm just holding the pens on the paper too long. I do work pretty fast. It's just the way markers are. I used to have a really heavy Bristol board I used to get years ago, and you didn't get much bleed with that, especially with the Pro markers and the Copics. But times change and papers change. If you've ever bought Fabriano hot pressed watercolour paper, a few years ago you would notice one type of paper, and now you'll notice a different paper. And this is basically because the press that makes the paper, they make money as well, and they've changed the papers and the money papers. So the watercolour paper you buy now from the new stock, as it starts to come in, will have a completely different texture, and absorbency rate is slightly different as well. But hey, we kind of get used to this. Right, oddly enough, I actually have all the pens that I used on the colour swatch today in a bag. So that colour swatch I've done, that's going to have to stay with me, because I'm lazy and I haven't got a colour chart. Can I be sneaky? No, I can't. Right, let's go outside. Right, so the photocopy wise, this was done on inkjet, I think the printer was. I have no idea. So once again, it's going to be interesting to see how the ink sits on the paper and takes the alcohol from the ink. Right, so I'm going to start off. I'm probably not going to list out every single pen that I use, so apologies if I don't. But I'll be doing the same principle that I do with Copics. Because these are double-barreled end, I'll open one end, let the pressure off, open up the other end, let the pressure out, and that should stop me getting any pools of ink forming. So we're starting off with GB8, which would be green blue, and hopefully we should get some really nice results. I'm probably not going to do blend straight away because I'd like to get colour onto the paper first. So I'm starting with my lightest tone, or lightish tone, and then we'll build it up from there. So if I put that there, you can see how the differences in the colours. The bullet tips are quite firm, which is nice. And you don't need at all much pressure. I mean, I'm barely using any pressure. You can see that that's quite a lot of coverage already. And for some reason the photocopy of this image came out very dark. It wasn't quite as dark, as light as I really wanted it, so that's something I'll have to work on, is just changing the ink settings on the photocopier. I think I would have liked it a lot lighter, but for these colour tests I'm not so worried. You can just about get a fine line with these pens, but because of that ink flow you have to just keep an eye on the pressure. You certainly don't need to put any pressure on these pens to get the ink to come out. And in areas where I want to put a lot of coverage, I'll probably just use a very, very light motion. I may stick with the circular one, because you know, quite often with Copics everyone does a circular motion to make sure the paper gets a really good even coverage. With the Spectrum Noirs you don't have to do that as much, but it doesn't hurt to either at the same time. First time I got the Spectrum Noir markers, I was a bit scared actually, because they smelled really, really strongly of marzipan. I do like my marzipan, I will admit. Nothing wrong with a good bit of marzipan. Especially when on Christmas cake with extra icing. But after a while I actually did get a headache from using these, so I had to kind of start a lot. Now, I've used pens for a little while and the smell seems to have receded, so I don't know if it was a case of the alcohol in the barrel hadn't mixed properly or something like that, but they don't smell quite as much, which is nice. But as always, if you're using markers, do please try and have a well ventilated area and not lock yourself into a kind of windowless room with the door closed. You will not feel well, and it's not worth it. Art and drawing and colouring is there to be enjoyed. You don't want to feel unwell while doing it. So I tend to have a door open if the cats don't start diving in the room and being naughty, or I make sure my windows are on first lock so that there's some ventilation coming through. I mean, even when it's kind of -4 outside, I always have something open. There we go. I took the image into where I work and asked a few of the guys there if they thought this image would be suitable for colouring in the colouring book, and the majority of the people I asked came back and said no, and the reason was it was too detailed and it made their eyes go squiggly. So I've got some good feedback. I mean, there's positive feedback that people like the image, it's just too strong, but I don't mind. like all alcohol markers with the Spectrum Noirs, once you've got one layer down, if you let it dry and then come over with the same pen, that should then give you a slightly different tonal variation. Just kind of hope my camera's picking this up. And something to just let you be aware of, one of the reasons you need to make sure you've got the right cardstock is if you don't, and you get a lot of saturation, say in big areas, the paper can actually wrinkle and buckle slightly and you'll get lumps in it, and it's really difficult to get them out. So once again, it's very important that you make sure you're using the right cardstock. There's a lump under here and it's annoying me. Sorry. Right. Princess and the Pea time. I can find a lump under paper anywhere. So that's a base layer of brown. So next I'm probably going to go for a light yellow, not a full yellow, because I don't want it to be too strong. Yeah, I probably should have put this whole lot over my desk earlier, but I didn't. Right, so I'm going to be looking for, I think, LY1. Okay. Right, LY1, here we go. LY1 isn't a full yellow, it's got a little bit of warmth to it, which makes it quite a nice undercoat. We've got bags under cables and cables under bags, right. So I'm gonna, there we go, just so you can put us into some of the centres of the flowers. And as discussed on the previous stream, I'm probably going to leave quite a few of the daisy looking flowers white, and that's just to add a little bit of balance into the image. But I am going to use this as an undercoat for the sunflowers. And a couple of leaves. Some of the flower centres I'll probably do with gold, just to make them stand out a little bit. Another thing I've got is I'm not 100% sure on what colours to do the grass on the dragon's dorsal. So I do want nice light colours. I was looking at some grass outside today, having a good think about what colours were actually there. But there's a difference between going into a woodland and looking at grasses in a woodland to looking at grasses on your front lawn. The only reason I know where most of these flowers are is because I can remember where I put them. Rose, 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 rose. That was a bad collapsing. I don't want too many of the same colour too close together. And this colour, this LY1, will go really nice on the chest as well, because it's quite a subtle colour. I'm much more into my opaque colours than big bright colours at all. I just find with opaque you can do a lot more. You can really build up blends, and especially when doing drawings that are reflecting something in nature. It's just nice to have colours that are more natural. I mean, it says bright animals. I might look at kingfishers and birds like that, or even some mammals, mandarins. If you've ever seen the mandarins face on the male, where they have that beautiful bioluminescent blue, it's all lovely. Let's move this bag before I trip over it. Yeah. On the Spectrum Noirs, you get a quite a strong rubber grip. They're quite a chunky pen, so sometimes I struggle to hold them, but we're getting there. First time I used them, I really struggled, but it's all about kind of training your hand to hold slightly differently. So let's try and find OR1, which should be a really nice orange. I do like the OR section of colours that they've got. So this is OR1, which should be orange one. It's not too bright, this one. Kind of got a little bit of a muted tone. And next I'm going to try an OR2. This one is a little bit brighter. So releasing the chisel, and back to the other end. So this one should be a tad brighter, so I'm probably not going to use as much. In fact, I can use a little bit of that to add in shading. Just add a little bit of contrast. At the end of the day, I'm going to come through with a lot of mixed colours just to build up layers and make sure the image has got a little bit of dimension to it. So going back to OR1 just to soften up the edges of the OR2, because I don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. I don't want the lines to show too strongly where one pen stops and the other pen starts. Right, so next I'm going to go for let's see, I'm going to try an EB5 and an EB8, which are a very, very dark brown. So you could say they're earth browns. and I'm going to start pushing in a little bit of detail here. I do want some dark areas and I do want some light areas as well. That colour that I began with, let's see. Okay, I'm going to bring in a GB7 onto the lower arm. Just onto the underside of the fingers and the arm itself. And because of the hatching and the marks that I've put in already, that I won't have to put too much depth of darker colours into there. I don't want to go completely too dark, so I'm just spotting on a little bit of the EB5 here and there. Then let's see, TN6 I'm going to bring in. Markers invading the page now, aren't they? And so TN6. This is quite a reddy brown. And I'm going to bring a little bit of this into the whisker parts. And then using the GB8 I'm just going to soften that off. This is where I've got a little range of browns in there, so that always helps keep things natural. Now I'm going to get a GB11, which is a kind of mossy green. And I'm just going to put a tiny bit up onto the antlers or branch parts. Then going to go back to the GP8 and the TN6, I think. She's in tiny bits. GB8. I'll just smooth that in. Right, so I'm going to give that a few seconds to dry, and while that's drying, I've got a Uniball gel pen, because every different type of gel pen will come out with a different colour. So if you have the Pilot really big chunky gold and silvers, they will have a completely different metallic sheen to the Uniballs and the other makes. So if you do get a load of metallic markers, definitely do colour swatches, because they're not all the same. And also always make sure these have time to dry. They're not always the fastest drying pens. If I wanted to darken any of this up, I can come across with a marker and just gently put a brown over them. So that's given that part of the image a little bit of shine to it. If I want to make anything really sparkly, I've got glitter pens which you can get from Spectrum Noir. You can get clear ones and ones with coloured ink in. They're called sparkle pens, I think. I do have one here, and they come in a little case like this, a bit nondescript. But yeah, this is crystal clear sparkle marker pen. Right, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of detail to the nose, which is actually a mouse. I just want to define that. So I've just put down the gold pen, and I've got the EB5. I hope that's going to dry enough. No, it's not going to. I'm going to have to leave that for a few seconds before doing that. I can see that's going to. You don't really want gel marker onto any of your pens because it can damage the nibs. So I'm going to go for the CR. No, I don't want CR11, that was too garish. Ouch, there goes my kneecap. Right, CR10. Right, so CR10 looks quite orange, but it's quite a nice red. And I'm just going to add in a couple of the little poinsettias. This is undercoat for them. And then there's the little roses, I can do them as a red. The red ink all seems to come out a lot faster, so you barely have to touch the paper before you get coverage. I'm not worried if I leave any white spots, because I can come through with lighter colour. Just going to add a couple of little red spots here and there, just so that the colours are carried all the way through. And I know there's a poinsettia here around here somewhere. There was one there. Where did I leave the other one? Spot the flower. That was too white. White daisy, white daisy. Leaf, leaf, leaf. There. If in doubt, I'm sticking a tiny dot of colour just in an area, and hopefully that should be the right area. Yeah, that's all of them. So now I'm going to find a GB3, I think. GB3, got GB4. GB3, that's GB8. Got GB7. Actually, I tell you what, let's go GB7. I'm just going to add a couple more leaves in. Right, so I'm going to actually have a look at the grass greens. Now, I haven't got all my pens actually up near me right now. They're on the floor around me, because I currently don't have enough room on my work desk to have every single pen out. Right, so I'm going to try a DG1 and DG2. Just going to quickly do a colour swatch. It's more of a yellow, but that's okay. That's better. Right, so going to go for DG1. I'm just going to start adding in a little bit of the grasses. This is quite a lightish yellow green. So it's probably not really going to show up much. Just drew my skull. So I'm just using quick flicking motion. And like with the black lines, I am doing just random marks as well, just to keep that continuity. In fact, I'm going to do the tail with this colour as well. And we'll put some of that onto the leaves and whiskers as well. And then the grass beard, and around the nose as well. I'm just going to add some spots to this one. This is sort of colour that I like, a light, really light, gentle colour. Nice thing is, if I want to darken it, I can just go and darken it. Add a little bit of this into the chest. But there's not much difference between this one and the the CT1. This is very, very close to CT1. Stick a little bit all over. Right, so that was the DG1. So let's try DG2. Once again, going over the grassy areas. This is more of a mossy grain. So you could say this is kind of like the underpainting. So with lighter colours, I don't mind how high up they go, because once I've got the bolder colours over the top, they won't show so much. And just put this colour over a couple of bits. So the next greens, I don't want to go too mossy, but I don't want to go absolutely stupid bright green at the same time. Right, so I'm going to just do a quick test on all these LGs and just see what comes up. So LG2, that's limeish. C G3, very, very bright limeish. LG1, very, very pale, could come in handy on the chest. Link, LG5, stereotypical grass colour. LG3, muted grass colour. Right. So we'll try the LG3 and just put a little bit of that down. Now I am going to run a tiny bit of gold through the grass, so this is where areas where I've gone over dark areas I'm not quite so fast, and in fact I can take a white pen like the white Sharpie or Posca do a white really fine pen. I can push one of those across and then put the colour over that. So there's always a way around these things. And same as before, adding a little bit of the colour that I've put in down there somewhere else. That LG5 is very kind of grassy coloured, so we can add a tiny bit of this. So I don't want it to be too artificial grass looking. So the darker colours I'm keeping closer to the spine, so like a dorsal stripe. So if you look at, say, an animal like a horse, you'll see the dark stripe on the back of many light horses, like a palomino or a buckskin. A lot of animals do have a dorsal stripe on their backs, so it's just trying to follow that idea. And once again, just going to add a bit of that green in elsewhere over the drawing. I'm making sure that just around the chin area that there's some slightly darker greens going there, so that the face stands out against the main body. So I do understand that it does blend in slightly. Right, now I need to have a think about darker greens. I really want a holly type dark green. Let's try that too. I'm going to look at the JGs, which would technically be jade green. So they should in theory have a more bluish tinge to them. Actually, yes. 6. Right, so this is JG4 and JG6. Bear with me 2 seconds. Sorry, proverbial cup of cold tea. It was hot when I started. So this darker colour, I'm literally just going to put a few tiny spots in. I don't want this being a dominant colour, but I just want it to carry certain parts of the drawing. So underneath the neck where there's more cast shadow, and just at some parts of the grass, but literally just in scatterings. So anywhere where there'll be a lot of dark shadow, I'm just going to gently apply a little bit here and there. So I'm just going to go back to the oranges and the reds now. And I think we're going to go for something along the GB3 range, if I can find it. I know it's here somewhere. It's TM3. Actually, no, TM3 is going to be too strong. TN6 is too dark. Right, let's go for GB4. So this is a bit of a rich yellow colour. You'll see whenever I use a yellow over the green, it just blends really nicely. And you get quite a nice muted natural tone. So there's some grass in the ear I just remembered about. So CG3, which is quite a bright luminous green. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of that into that ear to make that stand out a little bit more. And then I'm going to bring a little bit through all of the grass because it's a much bolder, brighter colour. So a little bit here and there. And a bit into the tail. Right, so I'm hoping I should be able to find CT1, LY1, CT1, here we go. CT1 is quite a bright, chirpy chick yellow, I'd say, but it's a much more toned down colour. So I'm going to use this just to push a little bit of the colour on the chest. Now, on the chest I've already put LY1, and there is a slight difference, but at first they do honestly look the same. Because it's a nice light yellow, I can just use it as an undercoat for some of the leaves. I can use it to blend out that very, very bright green as well. So I'm going to bring in the EB8, I think I said earlier, didn't I? And just put that on the nose, now that I know the gold is pretty much dried. And then I can come through onto the hands and just add in a tiny bit of shadow into there as well. You can buy different nibs for these Spectrum Noir pens as well, so if you want to change the nib type, that option is available, which is always quite handy. I'm just using these chisel ends just to make sure that I get really good coverage over this bit, because I'm actually bleaching out a little bit of the colour So you should suddenly see some of the colours change on the horns because I'm pushing more alcohol into there. I'm going to add a little bit of lavender here and there, or LV2. It's more of a dusky purple, I'd say. There's only a few spots of this. Right, now I'm going to bring in an OR2, which is quite a bright orange. So just want to push a few of these leaves forward. OR3 is a much more reddish orange, but I can just use this to darken up a couple of areas. Okay, so TN2 I've got here is a kind of peachy yellow. So I'm going to now bring this into the chest area, just filling in a couple of gaps. That way it should add a little bit more dimension into there. So I'm mostly looking for areas of shade. probably darkest that I really want to go with that colour. And I can use this colour to bleach out and blend a lot of the other yellows. Just trying to pick out the right pens. Every pen but the pen that you actually want is to hand. Right. So let's try and add a little bit GB5 into the shadowed areas. Right, just shove the pens everywhere. So I'm going to use this GB5, which is much more of a peachy colour, to really push a lot of the shade on the chest. Nice thing about alcohol markers is that if you get distracted and go off and leave them to dry, most of the time you can reactivate them and still blend with them, which is really nice. Sometimes you have to put a bit of a lighter colour down and then rebuild up your layer, but it's just so nice having that flexibility. So I think you should be starting to see a little bit of more definition around this area, I hope. Once again, we're going to add a little bit of this colour into the body. Up here seems to be a bit forgotten about. And on the face. Right, now for the GB4, which I think I've been hunting for the whole evening. I've finally found it. So this is quite a bright yellow. I'm going to put a lot of this onto the sunflowers, just on the middles, and then I'll probably come through and put different brighter yellow over that as well. Right, so now I'm going to add in some more greens. So probably going to start with the G5 one, the LG5. Now, by going over some of those yellows that I've already put down, some of these greens are going to become much more bold. So I'm going to add some LG3 now. In fact, I'll tell you what, Let's bring the camera in a little bit more so you can get an idea. So you can see the transition of the colours down here. I'm still leaving certain colours white. Then I just need to define a couple of the areas. A couple of areas I'm just going to push slightly more because I just want that definition there. But I've just spotted an area where I need to add in my lightest tones. So I need to find my LY1, which has decided to do a runner. LG1, LY1, here we go. Sometimes when I do really too detailed drawings, I do miss out spots. But it's fixable. So I'll just go over it with the lightest tone. And if I go over most of the chest area, it won't hurt because if anything it'll just bleach out the highlights a little bit more. Just ensure there's a nice smooth blend in there. Add a little bit here and there. So now I was mentioning earlier about our bright yellow for the sunflowers. Whoop! You don't want to see that part of my desk, believe me. And there we go. Right, so a really bright sunshiny yellow is what I need to find. Ow, 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 my kneecaps! Ow. Right, CT3 sounds good. And by the way, this is the ever-growing colour chart, as you can see. Hey, how about that? That's perfect. So this isn't all the colours either, so you can really see how much colour is going onto this image. Actually, in truth, I'm feeling okay with this. I'm happy with how the markers are performing. I'm getting a really nice laydown of colour, and it's a nice variation of partially opaque colours through to nice bold colours. And you think I haven't even got the layers on the red yet. No qualms. Right, so just need to get up off the floor. Eek, ouch, oh, ow. Right. So this is CT3, which will be going over the yellows that I've already applied. And sorry about the amount of markers taking over the page. Right, so where I've put down those slightly darker colours, I can now come through and very neatly just go all the way out to the tips with this yellow. And then what I need to do is bring a brown in. And if you've ever actually looked at the inside of a sunflower, you'll know it's not black. It's quite a beautiful array of colours. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit of the CT colour all over the place. So we've got that continuity again. It goes really nicely over the greens as well, which is good. In fact, it enriches and makes the colours much more vibrant. as you can probably see on the tail. It's made that much bouncier. Add a little bit down here, because I can always go over with a green. So for the middle of the sunflowers, I think I'm really tempted to go for TN6. I don't want to go for the EB5 or 8. I think those would be far too strong. Whereas the TN6 is more of a tan brown. TN5 I can find. TN6. I swear these are breeding. TN6. Now the reason I'm struggling to find it is because of course the nib shows it as an orange, where it's a bit darker, more of a terracotta. So that's TN6. So you can see there's a fair little bit of difference there. So that's what I was saying earlier about the colours don't always reflect what's on the nib. Would you believe it? I've nearly forgotten where I was going to stick this. Right, so TN6. In fact, I'm going to put it all around. I'm just going to define a couple of bits. Yeah, it's the sunflowers, wasn't it? Into the middle of the sunflowers. In fact, I'm going to add it into the middle of the poinsettias. Just for now. I'll be putting gold colour into there shortly. And just going to add a couple more little branch pieces. Make sure they stand out enough. A little bit of TN2, I think. Yeah, TN2, just down here, because I've just spotted an area that I haven't fully done. Okay, now I said about doing a gold gel pen, so I'm just going to bring that back into play. And I'm going to start picking out a few of the flowers. Not every single one, just ones where I know I'm going to need it. And there's actually, I've still got some black marks to put in. I've just seen where I've made a bit of a boo-boo there. Right. Just there. There we go. And there's one there. And a couple of the sunflowers, I'm going to add just a couple of tiny spots of gold, just to create some interest in each of the images. I once did a drawing of a dragon with pro markers, and it was basically tens and tens and tens of tiny little gold spots, and it was all done in gel pens. Took me absolutely forever. It was worth it. Right, so I just need those to dry for a few seconds. Bear with me, cup of tea time. So I've got quite a lot of white space along this bit. This is where I need to start adding in some of those colours that are already through here. So I'm happy-ish with the tail. I just realised what I've just done. You know what I said about the make sure the gold gel pen dries? I didn't. This spottiness is gold gel pen. Pants. It's fixable. It is fixable. That's what we have Posco pens for. But it's an absolute nightmare with gel pens when they decide to have a moment. With the Posco, I literally just dib, dab, dab, join the Boy Scouts. I only came across this type of pen end of last year. Just by chance, quite literally. Because a very famous artist was using one and I thought, oh, well, look at that. So I thought I'd have a go. I might need to do another layer of that. Right, I need that gel pen to dry. Right, well that's proverbially drying. Yeah, if you're going to do gel pens over drawings, just make sure you do it at the end and not midway through when you're still working on it. I'm okay to do this because I like making mistakes for you guys. Well, someone's got to do it. Right. I'm thinking DR7. I've nearly got every single pen out here. Oh no, not DR7, definitely not. DR7, that's way too maroon. Maroon. DR3? That's more subtle. No, that's not good. Worst bit about this is I'm going to have to put all the pens away at some point. I think I might get somebody else to do that. Delegate. No. The DRs, the dark reds, are really maroony. And no, it's way too pink. Me think it is a bit too pink. That's more it. CR8, so I guess that's crimson red. So DR3 and CR8, we're going to go for the poinsettias, hopefully without getting any more gold ink. It will. So I'm literally just going to do around the middles and the darkest areas. I might have to add a brown in here just to push these forward. And the same with the roses. A little bit of wiggle in there. So that was the CR8. And this is the DR3. Which is quite darker. So I don't want to go too mad with this. You can certainly get some very subtle colours when you mix and match with the Spectrum Noirs. Just a bit of an experiment on the nose there. I just wanted to see what happens when you add the red over the gold, because red inks and dyes can have an interesting effect depending on what you're doing. They don't behave all the time. So yeah, they actually sat on top, which was quite amusing. So I need to get this grass beard finished up. I need to get some more definition of greens and colours all around. So trying to pick up the pace a little bit. Yeah, I struggle at this point because I'm still having to look back at the reference chart for colours. So what I'm now doing is literally just blobbing down little bits of colour. And then I can merge them together and blend them out to create a nice textural effect. Now a couple of areas that I really wanted to keep white, the pens have bled out into, so that's where the Posca is going to come in handy, just to reactivate those highlights. Right. So I'm just going to use a GB11, I think I've got. Yeah, mossy. This is kind of a mossy green. I just wanted to put a little bit into the beard and just fill in a couple of gaps with this. But at the same time I still want to keep a certain amount of white. So I'm just going to now go over a couple of the areas where I want the white to show through with the Posca. I can come back over this with my black ink if I need to. So whenever you're inking, everyone makes mistakes. It's quite natural, but it's nice when you can just quickly fix any problems. Shove pens out of the way, just give you a little look at that. So the head is still quite hidden within the actual image. So to do a fix on that is going to mean going back to... Come on, don't do this to me. Right, going back to the original pens that I drew, so the Faber-Castell Pitt pens. And then with the medium, I'm gonna go around some of the outlines, not all of them, but only the absolute darkest areas of shadow. And this is literally just adding a little bit of detail here. The Posca markers do dry very, very fast, which is always handy. and I'm not going in the complete straight line. I am trying to keep a slightly sketchy feel. And this top bit. So my eyes are started to play up. Right, there we go. Right, so just on the top of the head, around the nose. Also just around the eye. Just up on the ear and up onto the antler. Not too much so in the middle of the antlers, just literally on the outer edge, on the darkest area. And then just around the ear. A little bit of a black tip on the end of the ear. A lot of animals, oddly enough, do have black tips on the end of the ears, so just around that flower petal. Now you've seen all the way through this, I've actually not used the colour black as the colour black, and that's because you don't often see plants with pure black in them. Black tulips are more of a burgundy red when you shine them up to a light. So it's a colour that is in nature by all means. It's just not one that you see every day. I mean, bees tend to go towards light flowers and such. So I really must go and get some black tulips and just see what happens with them. But I'm literally just using the black to highlight parts of the edge. Just add a little bit of definition to the shadow. And then a tiny bit around the limbs, just to make sure that it's clear where an arm comes out or goes in. But because I've put down a lot of the shading beforehand, then I don't need to have to worry about too much shading now. But I'm definitely going to add in some more cross-hatching around this area. And let's add some dots to the poinsettias. And just add a nostril to the nose. A couple of whiskers as well. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that really bright luminous CG3 into the beard area. Just make sure that that stands out slightly. And then I'm just going to use that colour to go around a couple of areas. Because it's a nice bright colour. Sorry, Baz, my eyes are deciding to completely and utterly play up now. Basically, I get blocked tear ducts, and then they kind of unblock, and it's painful because the kind of tears that come through are so salty. Whew. It's like having vinegar rubbed in your eyes. This I do not recommend. Give me 2 seconds. Lift the glasses. Poke the eyes. Ooh. Where I work is a very, very, very dusty environment with flour, dust, and sand. Tons of sand. So I work next to a beach, so we get anyone opens the door and you get half the beach blowing. In the end of the evening, you actually wonder how much of the stuff you sweep up is breadcrumbs and how much is actually sand. I've had, on a really good day, it'll block all of the drains to the building. And I've had enough to make a very small sandcastle in the middle of the floor before. Right. Ooh. There's a sunflower up there that isn't looking so sunny, so I just need to amend that. Ooh. Right, let's go for the... Start with the GB5 in the middle. I'm just going to add a little bit of that all over. Right, and then the CT3, which is very nice and bright. And that can go on the outside. Let's brighten up a lot of those greens just around there. Right. So you can see the head's now standing a little bit more out because of the extra line work that's gone into that. So now I'm going to dig around and find the extra small and the medium that I was using up until this process to actually draw out the image. Here's the extra small. That's the Faber-Castell pens, and around this area I'm just now going to go over some bits and add in some little hatch marks. And this doesn't matter in the sense if it goes over the initial drawing, because I'm trying to indicate shade within an area. And then if the hip comes out here, we're going to need a little bit down here. It's just going to give a better idea of where bits of the character's body are in relation to each other. So yeah, I've done all that colouring in, and oh no, I'm putting all these nasty lines over it, but I just want certain parts to stand back and certain parts to stand forward. And you can use squiggly marks, you can use really any marks. And around here I just want to add in a little bit more shade. And a little bit of detail up here, just to define a couple of bits. Including a couple of little strands of fur, or in this case, kind of grass fur. Yes. Right. And you know what? I'm going to call that pretty much done for the Spectrum Noir colouring pens. So hopefully that showed you how I've built up a lot of the image just using flat colours, and then if I want to push any of the colours further forward, I will literally just come through, find a colour that I want to push, and with the next colour up from it, I'll then just add in areas of shade and shadow so that that makes that individual piece stand out slightly more from the rest. Now, if you've enjoyed watching me try and colour this image, then you're always welcome to follow along. You can follow me here on Twitch or on YouTube. There's a link below. And that way you can keep up to date for whenever I'm streaming. I don't have a set timetable as yet because I has to work, and that sadly gets in the way a lot. And also I do have a life. Honest. So if you kind of follow or like, then you've got a chance of getting the updates when I'm kind of online or just in and around. And that way you can keep up to date with any of the latest bits of work that I decide to do. I'm hoping to do kind of hints and tips bit around here as well, just in case anybody wants any of those, though. Everything will be based off of what I've learnt myself. I'm not a sponsored person, by the way. Disclaimer there, this was not a sponsored video. It's just me having a play and seeing what I can see. And I'm seeing more areas to add spots of colour in. Hardest bit about when colouring in is knowing when to stop. By the sounds of it, it's going to be very soon. Right. I will probably add a couple more little swatches of colour to this as I go. But that is pretty much it, apart from, like I say, I'll probably add some darker colours in just to create more depth. So the look on the chest is pretty much the look overall that I want to get for the whole image, but it's going to take more, sadly, than 2 hours to do. And yeah, I've been doing this for 2 hours. So you can colour in basically with just one layer, or you can add layers. You can take away layers by adding more alcohol or lighter pens. So it depends on however long you want to spend colouring in. It's up to you how and what approaches you take. So how did I find the Spectrum Noir pens? Yeah, this time, yeah, felt more comfortable. I've got a really nice colour layer down. There are a couple of areas where the bullet nib and the chisel nib were too chunky, but that's fixable. Everything is fixable if you think about it. So for a cheaper well, they are cheaper. You can buy them in packs and such. They do seem expensive, but they are a little bit cheaper than some of the other marker brands. So for a starter marker, I think they're pretty good, and you do get a huge range of colours. You get brights, you get lights, you get antique, dark, floral, you know, pretty much nearly everything. The only thing I'd say they're lacking in the sets is more opaque colours like you get with the Copex. Apart from that, hey, they work. and the bleed through. Now, let's just check that out. It's always worth knowing how much your pen bleeds. There we go. So actually the cardstock, the Crafter's Companion cardstock's done pretty well on that. You can see where the red has really come through. Now I did say about reds being a very, very juicy colour, and that's done exactly what I expected. And there's an eyebrow. So overall the bleed through's pretty good. My green sheet is nice and clean. I would like to add more darkness to that, but I'm going to have a little look at what colours I can add. I'll probably add browns into that. So hopefully this has helped inspire you to go and pick up a pencil, find a pen, or even just get some markers. It doesn't matter what you get to start with, it's just getting used to handling equipment. When you feel a bit more confident with your abilities, save up that bit, maybe spend a tiny bit more money on your products. Have a look on YouTube at all the reviews that are available. Everyone out there is there to help. And share and inspire everyone around you. If you receive criticism and it's negative, remember you can always ask the question back of, okay, I agree that could be an issue, how would you approach it? Turn a question back on itself. So if somebody said to me, I don't like this image, the shape's wrong, then I would say, okay, that's cool, no problem with that, how would you do it? And then learn, because at the end of the day it might not be something that you want to hear, but what that person then says, if they do answer you, could really help you learn more. So don't take negative criticism as fully negative. Look for the positives within it. After all through secondary school, I got told off for doodling in art class. So considering I doodled all the way through it, I think I'm doing quite well-ish. I'm not great, I've still got a huge amount to learn, but if I can help inspire a few of you guys out there to go and get a pencil and have a go too, then that makes it all worthwhile. So till next time, all the best, take care, and happy drawing to you all.